Hi there. I'm Irina. Ever had your own sister fake a pregnancy just to steal your man? She moved into my house, said she had nowhere to go. 2 months later, she stood in my dining room and told my family she was carrying his child. But here's what she didn't know. I owned everything. The house, the documents, the truth. And the worst part wasn't her lie. It was how my family believed her. They blamed me, called me cold, tried to erase me from the life I built. So I stayed quiet until I couldn't anymore. It was nearly midnight when the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something about the way it rang, sharp, insistent, made me reach for it. Shanann's name lit up the screen. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. I lost my job. They closed the office. I didn't know who else to call. I stared at the ceiling, heart heavy. We hadn't been close since we were teenagers. She always had a way of making everything about her, especially when things fell apart. Still, something inside me softened. Maybe it was guilt, maybe habit. I told her she could stay until she figured things out. She showed up the next evening, looking smaller than I remembered. Her shoulders slumped, skin pale. I offered her the guest room. She hugged me like I was her savior, and for a moment, I let myself believe I was doing the right thing. Lyle didn't object. In fact, he was strangely accommodating. "Of course she can stay," he said before I could even finish asking. I remember thinking how quickly he agreed. Too quickly. At first, it was manageable. She slept most of the day, blaming stress. I cooked, worked remotely, and kept my distance. But then little things began to shift. Lyle started lingering longer in the kitchen if Shanann was making tea. They'd laugh at jokes I didn't hear. One evening, I walked in and found them watching a movie together on the couch, sitting just a little too close. Their laughter stopped the moment they saw me. I smiled, pretending I didn't notice. But I noticed. Another time, I offered to pick up groceries. Lyle quickly said, "Don't worry, Shannon and I can go." Just like that. Like she was part of our routine now. That night, I stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the closed door of the guest room. The house felt different. Not louder, not hostile, just off. The kind of off that makes your skin feel tight. I told myself I was imagining things. Stress, maybe. I was just being paranoid. But then I saw it. Her hand brushing his arm in the kitchen, like she'd done it 100 times before. His smirk, the way he didn't flinch. I didn't say a word. Later, lying in bed, I watched the ceiling fan spin slowly overhead. I could hear muffled voices downstairs, too low to make out, but they weren't laughing this time. Just talking. And that scared me more. I've always trusted actions more than words. And lately, their actions say too much. By morning, their voices were gone. The hallway was silent again, but something inside me hadn't settled. I moved through the kitchen like muscle memory, pouring coffee, avoiding the places they'd stood last night. My gut still twisted. That evening, our house filled with chatter. A family dinner, apparently. But I hadn't planned anything. Shanann had. The dining table looked like it belonged in a magazine spread. She'd lit candles, arranged flowers, even printed out little name cards. My name was last. Her name was centered. She moved between guests like a hostess, laughing just a bit too loud, touching shoulders as if this was her home. Lyle poured wine. He didn't sit beside me. I sat in my own house, surrounded by my family, and somehow felt like a stranger in it. I couldn't follow the conversations. Every time I tried to join, someone, usually Shanann, redirected. "Oh, Irina's been so busy lately," she'd say, waving me off with a smile. "She practically lives in that home office." Then, just as dessert was about to be served, Shanann stood up. She cleared her throat and tapped her glass with the edge of a fork. Everyone fell quiet. She looked around, pausing for effect. "I know this is a little unexpected," she began, voice sweetened like syrup, "but I have something beautiful to share. Lyle and we're expecting a baby." The words didn't land. They detonated. Gasps scattered across the room. A fork clattered to the floor. My father blinked. My mother covered her mouth, eyes turned toward me. I didn't move, didn't blink. Lyle stared down at his plate, silent. Shanann looked at me like she was waiting for me to make a scene, but I didn't. I stood up, smoothed the front of my blouse, and without saying a word, walked away. I climbed the stairs slowly, deliberately, closed my bedroom door, and locked it. The sound of muffled voices rose behind me, like the ocean in a storm. Let them talk, let them speculate. I sat on the edge of my bed and didn't cry. Instead, I pulled open my drawer, reached past the old receipts and notebooks, and pulled out the thick manila folder I kept in the back. My name was on every page: deed, mortgage, purchase history. Every corner of this house, every nail in the wall, belonged to me. I may not be their idea of family, but I know what I own. The manila folder was still on my lap when I heard them laughing downstairs again. It wasn't the soft kind, the kind that wraps around a warm memory. It was the kind people use when they think you're not listening. The next day passed in slow motion. Lyle left early, claiming work at the co-op. Shanann stayed behind, lounging on the couch with her phone, my iPad on her lap. She didn't even ask. I made tea and sat at the far end of the kitchen island, pretending to scroll through emails. From where I sat, I had a direct view of the iPad's screen. She left it unattended when she went upstairs to take a call. The screen lit up with a message. Ashley. Once the baby is announced, Irina's out. Another one popped up. Same sender, Ashley. The guy's a pushover. Once he signs, the house is mine. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just reached forward, opened the messages, and scrolled. She'd laid it all out, step by step, the dinner, the announcement, the plan to wear me down, to push me out of my own house, to replace me. I took a screenshot, then another, and another. I forwarded them to myself and deleted the email traces. I locked the iPad and placed it back exactly where she left it. Then I took my tea upstairs. Sitting on the edge of my bed again, I replayed her words in my head. Once she's out, once he signs. So it was never about healing or family or a place to land. It was a plan, a slow burn con. And Lyle was either in on it or too weak to stop it. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I closed the curtains, locked my door, pulled out the deed once more, ran my finger across the embossed seal at the bottom. This house, every square inch, was mine. They wanted to make me small, invisible, replaceable. They thought I was too quiet to fight back. That's their mistake. The next few days blurred into forced small talk and cold silence. Lyle kept his distance, and Shanann floated around like she'd won something. I stayed quiet, but I watched everything. That Thursday, I came home earlier than usual. The driveway was full. Mom's old Buick parked behind Dad's truck. I stepped through the door and immediately felt it. The kind of quiet that isn't peace. Shanann sat upright on the couch, Mom beside her, both with clasped hands and matching expressions. "We need to talk," my mother said. She always used that phrase like it was her weapon of choice. I set my purse down, didn't sit, just waited. Shanann reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. She handed it to Mom with a smile too controlled to be sincere. "The baby is real," she said, loud enough to echo off the walls. "I just want peace in this house." Mom lit up, like someone had finally told her a story she wanted to hear. "See, she's not lying, Irina. She's trying. You need to stop being so cold." I took the paper, unfolded it. A grainy ultrasound printout topped with a fake clinic logo. The font wasn't even the right one. The watermark was smudged, like it had been copied from Google. Shanann's face stayed sweet, innocent. She looked at me like I was the unhinged one. "You don't have to like me," she said gently, "but this is happening. Lyle and we didn't plan it, but life's messy." My mom nodded along like she was hearing gospel. Dad remained silent, eyes on the rug like he wanted to disappear into it. I held the ultrasound for another second, then set it on the table. "You really expect me to believe this?" I asked calmly. Not a whisper, not a scream. Just truth, sitting between us like a blade. "You're being cruel!" Mom snapped. "You always think you're better than everyone. Maybe try being a sister instead of a judge." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I turned, walked up the stairs. Every step was steady, every breath deliberate. In my room, I locked the door, sat down, opened my phone, tapped the folder with screenshots, the messages, the plan, The timeline, it was all there. She brought fake documents to my house. I'll bring real ones to hers. The next morning, I called in sick. Not because I was breaking, but because I wasn't. I needed time, not to cry, but to act. I started with my home office. The drawer where I kept my mortgage paperwork had been tampered with. Papers out of order, some missing. I opened my laptop, pulled up the printer history. There it was. A document labeled Ownership Transfer Request. Printed at 3:17 p.m. yesterday. I closed the lid slowly. Shanann and Lyle weren't just scheming. They had started moving the pieces. When they came home that afternoon, I was waiting. The deed was on the table in front of me. My original. Signed, notarized, and ironclad. They barely stepped inside when I spoke. "Did either of you lose something?" I asked, voice steady. Lyle froze. Shanann glanced at the paper, then at me. "What's this?" "You know what it is," I said. "What I want to know is why there's a fake transfer document in my printer queue." She gave a half smile, the kind people use when they've been caught, but think they're still smarter. "It was just a what if. We were just curious, exploring options." "Curious?" I repeated. "This isn't Monopoly." Lyle looked like he wanted to vanish. Shanann stepped forward, tone syrupy. "You've been so stressed lately, Irina. I thought maybe if things were simplified, shared." "Shared?" I pushed the deed toward her. "This is not yours to share." I stood up slowly, never raising my voice. "Touch one more document in this house, and I'll let the law finish what I've started." She blinked, faltered. "You don't have to be like this." "No," I said, "but I choose to." Then I turned and walked away, not in silence, not in shame, but in power. That was your warning. There won't be another. It rained the next day, the kind of slow, steady drizzle that makes everything seem quieter than it is. I spent most of it inside, answering work emails, replaying yesterday's confrontation like a courtroom cross-examination in my head. Late afternoon, I heard a knock. Not the doorbell, not urgent. I opened it. My mother stood there, clutching her purse like it might shield her from what she'd already decided she didn't want to hear. Shanann was beside her, arms folded, eyes wide and wet, stage ready. I didn't invite them in. They came anyway. "You've gone too far, Irina," Mom said as she eased onto the living room couch. "This has to stop. She's pregnant, and you're throwing threats like knives." I leaned against the doorframe. "She's not pregnant," Shanann whimpered. I didn't flinch. "Don't be cruel," Mom hissed. "You always do this. You freeze people out, act like you're above pain, but you're not. You're just bitter." I looked at her. "You saw the texts?" "I don't care about screenshots," she snapped. "I care about this family." That word again. Family. Like it was a shield she got to raise and I didn't. "Blood is blood," she said. "But you're making it poison." That was it. The final crack. I stepped forward. "Don't talk to me about blood when you've only ever seen one child. This house, this life, I built it from scratch, without a single favor. And now you want to hand it over to a liar because she knew how to cry better than I did?" Shanann started to say something. I raised a hand. "Don't." I opened the door. "You both need to go, now." Mom's mouth opened in protest. I didn't give her the chance. I said go. They left, not with slammed doors, not with shouting, just silence and shoes on wet pavement. I stood in the hallway alone, but lighter. If you think blood excuses betrayal, then we were never family to begin with. The sky was steel gray when Lyle knocked. Not a text, not a call. He came in person, stood on my porch like he hadn't been part of the plan to take everything from me. "I need to talk," he said, barely meeting my eyes. I let him in, but only as far as the living room. I didn't offer him water. He looked around like it was foreign now, like he realized finally it wasn't his. "She lied," he said. "No build-up, just that. There was no baby." I didn't blink. "She told me she went to the doctor, then said she lost it. But I never saw a test, never saw a note. I asked. She'd cry, shut down. I wanted to believe her." He wasn't crying now, just ashamed. I took out my phone. "Do you mind if I record this?" He shook his head. "No, I deserve that." I hit record, held the screen up like a badge. "Start again." He did. Every word, every date, every time he asked her for proof. I didn't interrupt. I let the camera catch it all. This isn't about revenge, I said after. This is about record. The front door slammed open. Shanann, hair frizzed, mascara smudged, breath heavy like she'd run from the car. "What did you say?" she shrieked. "Are you recording him now? What is this, a setup?" Her voice cracked. She turned to Lyle, grabbing his shirt. "You told her? After everything—" "I told the truth," he said quietly. Then it happened. She dropped to her knees right there on the porch, screaming, pleading. "I was scared. I didn't know how to fix it. You were slipping away." A neighbor across the street paused mid-jog. Another stood by their mailbox, phone in hand, recording. Shanann didn't notice, or didn't care. "I was pregnant, I swear, maybe just not long. Please don't leave me." I stepped past her, closed the door slowly, locked it, stared through the peephole at the crowd gathering. Now the world can see who you really are. By the next morning, the video had made its way online. I didn't share it. I didn't need to. Someone else had. Someone with a front row seat to Shanann's staged collapse. Comments flooded in. Manipulative, caught red-handed, this poor woman, Irina. For once, I was the poor woman. 2 days later, I heard the knock again. I looked through the peephole before opening. Mom. Her jaw was clenched, her grip tight around a manila envelope. She stepped in before I said yes. "You humiliated her," she said flatly. "She lost the baby." I blinked. There was no baby. Mom held up the envelope like it was the Holy Grail. "Ultrasound. Stress caused the miscarriage. You kicked her out, your own sister." I didn't touch the paper. "You know what she did. You saw it. She's confused. People make mistakes, but family doesn't slam doors." "Maybe yours doesn't," I said. "Mine locks them." She stared at me like she was seeing someone else. "Good," I said, "because this version of me, she's done apologizing." Mom turned, muttering something about cold hearts and ungrateful daughters. I didn't follow. I locked the door before her heels left the porch. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Lyle. I saw the video. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can we talk?" Then again, a few hours later, he showed up. Flowers in hand, a hopeful smile. I opened the window, not the door. "Thank you for the truth," I said. "But you still let it happen." His smile faltered. "You're right. I'll go." He left the bouquet on the mat. I didn't pick it up. That night, I called my lawyer. "File it," I said. "Finalize everything. I want this chapter closed." Then I sat in my home office, opened the old photo box. Most were snapshots of what I tried to build with people who only wanted to break it. I saved one. Me at the beach, barefoot, sun-drunk and smiling. The rest? I fed to the fireplace. This time, I was not burning bridges. I was sealing exits. A week later, my phone lit up with a number I now recognized by heart. "This is Carla from Benjamin Law. Just confirming. Your divorce is finalized. No objections filed. All property remains in your name." I closed my eyes. A breath I didn't realize I'd been holding escaped. "Thank you," I said. "Email me the documents. I'll print them now." The printer hummed in the corner of my home office, spitting out a sheet that might have looked unremarkable to anyone else. But to me, it was freedom printed in black and white. I slipped the final page into a folder, clicked the metal clasp shut. Done. No more second chances, no more rescues, no more waiting for people to be who they never were. I packed up a few remaining things, books, files, the mug that read, "You've got this." My home no longer needed defending. It had served its purpose. Now it was time to leave, not in defeat, but by choice. Before I locked the front door one last time, I texted my parents, "I'm okay, please don't contact me anymore." Then I blocked every number I had memorized since childhood, not out of hate, out of necessity. 2 days later, I stepped off the plane in Savannah. Warm breeze, salt in the air. My name, freshly printed on a new mailbox. Just E. Rowe. The apartment was modest but filled with light. The kind of quiet that didn't scream loneliness, but peace. I made coffee, opened the balcony door, let the morning drift in. Across town, I'd heard Shanann was working at a boutique now. Wordless glances followed her more than customers did. Lyle had moved in with a cousin in Charlotte. His profile picture disappeared months ago. Mom still sent Christmas texts. They went unread. And me? I watched the sunrise, coffee in hand, smiling at nothing in particular. This wasn't an ending. It was a return, one that belonged only to me. I used to think walking away meant losing. That silence meant weakness. That choosing peace over proving a point meant surrender. But I was wrong. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is close a door without slamming it. Sometimes, freedom doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in quiet mornings, in knowing you didn't break just because someone else wanted you to. I don't share my story to gain sympathy. I share it because I know there are women, maybe even men, sitting in homes that don't feel like home anymore. Being told they're too much for setting boundaries or not enough to be loved right. To you, I say this: you are not crazy, you are not cruel, and you are absolutely allowed to protect your peace. Blood doesn't give people the right to break you. Loyalty does not mean self-destruction. If you've ever had to rebuild from the ground up, emotionally, spiritually, even legally, I see you. I was you. And now I'm free. What about you? Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved for the sake of your own sanity? Do you believe family ties should come with limits? I'd love to hear your story or thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, comment one or tell me where you're watching from. I read every message. Didn't vibe with the video? That's okay too. Tell me why and where you're tuning in from. And hey, if you believe in strong women, second chances, and stories that speak to the soul, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's keep healing and growing together.